All right, we're just going to spin up a poll here as everybody is joining us, and then we will get going. Should have a poll popping up on your screen. So hopefully we haven't lost too many people today. We had a little bit of a blip in the Microsoft universe with Teams that our Teams webinar decided to cancel this webinar unbeknownst to us, but it must be the robots at work. So hopefully everybody got the revised webinar invitation. If you were on this, you definitely did. And we were hoping that other folks got it as well. Just a quick reminder, please answer the poll. We want to get a sense of what Microsoft 365 applications folks are using right now, so we can get an idea as the webinar goes on. So we will get rolling. Thank you for joining us today. This is Unwrap Success, the perfect Microsoft 365 presence for a more efficient team. So our focus is on talking to people about how to improve Microsoft 365 utilization, how to improve efficiency, how to improve cybersecurity. We get asked all the time, how do we get our team better utilizing Microsoft 365? First of all, obviously it's better to talk about it if you got a funny hat on. It's much more entertaining. We're in the Christmas spirit, so we wanted to give you a present for some advice, things that you can give to your team, different ideas for how to better utilize 365. As always, these webinars, we aim for about 30 minutes of content, and then we will take questions. If there are any questions, please post them in the Q&A panel. And we will either answer them in the Q&A panel or answer them live, depending on what makes the most sense. Want to introduce Jermaine. Welcome, Jermaine.
Hey, Brendan. Hello, everyone out there. Happy to be here. Final webinar of the year.
Yeah, it's our last webinar. We're not going to do another webinar until next year.
And in 2023.
Be fun. Jermaine is our VP of Operations, joins me, and together we run these webinars on a monthly basis, usually third Wednesday of every month, depending on schedule. Today is the second, obviously Wednesday of every month, because we have the holidays coming up, so we wanted to do it a little bit earlier this month. And make sure that we still got a webinar in. For those that don't know me, my name is Brendan Howe, and CEO and owner of Techify. So before we go on to our subject of the day, let's talk about our next webinar. We're coming up next year. Holy cow. Next year, 5 ways AI can securely transform your business in 2024. So here's what we're thinking. A lot of folks are going to come back to the office after the holiday break. And they're going to be thinking, okay, what can I do with technology? What can I do with my business? How can I change my business? And there's a lot of talk about AI out there. There's a lot of hype, but people are still trying to figure out, how do I utilize it? How do I make an impact? And that sort of thing. So our first webinar of the year is going to be on exactly that, how to go from hype to actually implementing AI in your business, and how you can do that in a secure way. So going to be a great webinar. You can sign up at techify.ca/training or /webinars, and you will also get an email invitation as well if you are on a regular mailing list. So that will be fun. Okay, so let's talk about Microsoft 365 adoption. One of the ways that we're seeing huge opportunity for folks to to really boost productivity of their team. So here's why. Microsoft did a study called what was it called? The Work Trend Index. It was earlier this year, surveyed about 30,000 people to get a sense of how people are working, and had some pretty astounding results. Folks are spending about 57% of their work hours on communication. So that's chats, Teams messages, chats, Teams meetings, emails, more meetings. It's 57% of their time is just on communicating. And that's only leaving 43% of their time to actually do the work. And so what we're trying to help everybody figure out and guide them along the way is, how do we get out of that sort of drudgery, the day-to-day communications task, that overwhelm, the crazy inboxes, that sort of stuff, to free up more time so that we can spend it actually on the high value stuff that everybody wants to spend their time on. So Jermaine and I kind of, with our team, brainstormed a bunch of ways that and some tips and tricks that we can give to you. In past years, we've done this webinar as like, hey, here's some techie gifts, and had some fun with it. That way, we thought the best gifts that we could give to you in the holiday spirit would be the gift of productivity. Right, Jermaine, you're a productive guy. We should help everybody be more productive.
Yeah, I think getting in there and doing a few of the tips and tricks will help. And you know what? If you can get through all your email, I mean, it feels like a lot more festivities can happen around the office during the lower period of the year. So let's see if we can present people some extra time.
Okay, so let's fire right into adoption. So this is from a white paper that Microsoft did, talking about Microsoft 365 adoption. The biggest thing that we hear back on Microsoft 365 from so many folks is, hey, I'm paying tons of money a month for these Microsoft licenses, and my team is using a small fraction of the software cloud services that we're paying for. So how do we do that? So we did a bunch of research, and particularly locked in on this Microsoft white paper. And what it was saying is, there's essentially 4 steps to getting better adoption. So step 1 is the deployment. So actually setting the stuff up properly. That's the technical infrastructure, moving like files to SharePoint, that sort of thing. So I think what happens in a lot of organizations is just the focus is on step 1, right? Hey, we've moved the files over, we're in SharePoint, everything's set up, where you can use Teams, go off, do it, right? But step 1 is only the first step, obviously. It's making the solution available. Step 2 is the usage. Employees, team members actually using the service that's being made available. So we need to get folks using this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to step 3 is getting closer. It's in that adoption phase. So deep habitual usage that delivers real value to employees, like tangible value. Right? It's part of the business. It's part of the operating procedures of an organization. And then step 4 is proficiency, where people have fully changed their behaviors and they're leveraging full solution. So the ideas that we've come up with, the different tips and tricks and stuff like that we've come up with today, is to help you get your team to that proficiency stage. We want to see full adoption. We want to see that proficiency, and we know from that's what's people are gonna get the most out of it that way. All right, so what happens if you don't? So Jermaine, we talked about this a little bit this morning, right? If people don't adopt 365, what's the impact?
Well, it's the cost of not using anything, right? You buy a new car and you don't use it, you're not going to get anywhere faster. And with Microsoft 365, we know it changes a lot and it moves really fast, and they're at the kind of the leading edge of AI adoption and change. But if you don't use it, like, you're just basically paying for stuff and not getting the benefit out of it for your employees and your team.
Yeah, and I think it's way bigger than, as you said, it's not just the $28 or whatever a month per user that you waste by not. It's the lost productivity. So your team is not able to get as much done. They're not able to hit targets as effectively. They're burnt out. They struggle. There's an increase in IT costs, right? I was talking to a company earlier this week that has this massive IT infrastructure. They're basically duplicating. So they're paying for Microsoft 365 and they have all these servers and stuff in place. There's way higher security risks if folks aren't using 365 properly. It can lead to a bigger vulnerability of attacks, can lead to email account compromise, can lead to file server ransomware, that sort of stuff, which is a big problem, right? And then there's other missed opportunities, and you mentioned AI. That's a great example, right? If you're not getting into that adoption stage of 365, you're not going to be able to fully leverage adoption proficiency. You're not going to be able to fully leverage AI, and then you're going to see your competitors are using stuff a lot quicker than you. So we always come back to, hey, training. People say, well, we just need to train our staff, and that's absolutely true. But training, there's so much to training, right? There's a leadership component. The leaders need to be reinforcing, talking about this is an important part of our workflow and how we do things. There's on-demand training, like there's 5-10 minute snippets that people can take to better learn. There's that 70-20-10 model where 70% of the way that people train is actually on the job learning, doing it, right? And it's less like instructor-led stuff. Putting the webinars and stuff like that, they're important, but they're a starting point. So we launched a monthly webinar for our clients. That's a monthly training session that gets down into our last one. Our one from last week talked about SharePoint and tips and tricks and how to use it and how to share files and how to unshare files and how to search and find things and version control and stuff. We'll show a little bit of that today, but think about that on an ongoing basis. How are you training your team? How are you setting that sort of culture in that environment to get them up to the point of adoption and into that sort of full utilization piece? All right. So let's talk about, we're gonna start with teams.
Yeah. Why don't we have a quick conversation, talk a little bit about where we can try to see a little bit more of that productivity improvements for our team using Teams. And as funny as it sounds, your apps in Teams, you have one location for access to all of your data. You can schedule, do communications. We even use our phones. Our phones all go through Microsoft Teams phones, so you can get quick questions through chats and just kind of going deeper and deeper into it. So we take a look at this, and thank you for our team for putting together such a nice dashboard for visibility. When you get in there and you take a look at it, we start on the left side in the side panel there, where you can see you've got all the teams listed out. You've got your calendar, your phone if it's available to you. We've got our internal performance management tool. Everything's pinned there on the left side in the column. And then we have a breakdown of our simple teams within the organization that people are various members of. And then you shift a little bit to the right, and there's the entire plan for someone's calendar for the entire month of December. Now, if you take a look at that, you've got a plan of recurring events that you have, planning objectives throughout the month. And then on the right side, you have all the tasks that are set out for that person to complete within the day, within the week, within the month. And to top it all off, they're still in their individual single team in the marketing task team, because right in there, everything's in the same portfolio. And your key takeaways from this would be you can integrate your apps and utilize this for your team members so that they don't need to be going outside of the infrastructure or the area that they're working in that pane of glass. And you can organize your teams as a central hub to make things easier so that everybody can see what's happening in there. And then you want to have access to your SharePoint, all goes through Teams as well. So all the documentation in your backend is available. And then you have your tasks by planner and calendar. So if you've got all of this in front of you, imagine the productivity of the number of reduced clicks that your person would be doing on a day-to-day basis just to manage their own time.
Yeah, I think our team's getting a lot out of this, right? Like even adding other applications. We've been testing out Microsoft Copilot. We've been adding that. We have chatbots that we're adding into Teams. It's really that sort of central workspace. And I love being able to just access files that are kind of specific to the business development team, for example, or specific to the general team. Or they don't let me on the social committee, so I don't get to access any of those files. But if I was on the social committee, like I got like with this hat, I don't know why they wouldn't let me be on the social committee. But
you get to be the champion of the celebrations, as opposed to planning and organizing. Eh? I mean, everybody has a role.
It's probably for the best. So hopefully people can see, like, if you think about for your team, encouraging them to use Teams a little bit more broadly than just the chats, right? Just the chats and the meetings. Is your phone system integrated into Teams, as you said, right? How many applications is the setup? Are you using Planner? That sort of stuff. There's huge opportunity here. Okay, so let's go into let's do SharePoint next.
Great. So a couple of tips to improve use of your SharePoint and for your teams. So we'll talk through a little bit here. Creating sites and having those sites link back to your Microsoft Teams, because we talked about Teams earlier as that front end, but having your SharePoint organized appropriately for the data so that you can collaborate. And that collaboration is the key piece where you save the most time. You're not waiting for someone to respond to an email. Everybody's collaborating and working together. And then you get the most productivity coming out of that data being organized well in SharePoint and then being utilized by the different teams that are accessing it. So key takeaways that we'd want to talk about coming out of the utilization of SharePoint. So if we go ahead and roll the video, we've got a short kind of screen capture here showing how easy it is to come into SharePoint, search for a document, find that document without having to search around, spend 4 hours looking for it in the filing cabinet, open it up, look at the document and collaborate on the document with other people within the organization. So it's a live collaboration. You can make comments, you can add information into the document. And let's say somebody comes in, they sneeze and hit the delete button. You can actually go back and restore an older version. So your work gets saved as you go on going throughout that collaboration, and you can go ahead and save the new version as a copy or just replace the one that was missing. So no longer is it a situation of, hey, who has the most recent version of this document? Or I sent you a document attachment via email. Can you send me your version once you've updated it? No, it's one document in one place being utilized and collaborated on by everyone. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, like, the more people use this stuff, like we found in our organization, the more people, we just updated our HR manual, for example, and everybody was putting comments in the actual document, right? The document was shared and people would insert a comment in the document. You could see other people's comments. You could comment on their comments. It was a really efficient way to collaborate, right? And you could see changes and stuff like that. So you do that and you start telling people, hey, I put my comments right within the document. I'm not emailing them around, right? And then people start to understand, hey, there's a capability we can do there. That's something we can do differently in our company. That's way more efficient. I'll give you another example. I was meeting with Jade yesterday, who's our business development person. We were talking about our team and we were talking about, hey, what books should we have our team read? Are there sales books and that they can read? And I went into SharePoint and I created a book list probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I had no idea where it's saved, right? And I just went and literally typed sales books into the search bar of SharePoint. It came up right away. No time searching. It was like, hey, here's a full list of books we've read in the past that have been really good and helped us. And it's just an example. Like, you think there's estimates of a third a day, a third of people's time they spend actually looking for information. So you think about the opportunity that you can save hours and hours of people's time a week by showing them how to use these tools to find data much quicker.
All right,
All right.
so we'll jump over and take a quick gander at our poll. But when we think about the total number of apps that exist today in the Microsoft space, on the screen we've got 32 apps, of which we think 20 or so of them you're not using today. So that's Brendan, why don't you check on the poll and see what we've got from a utilization perspective?
Yeah, so I looked up a lot of the so a lot of the responses we're seeing is the usage is the usual Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Teams, that sort of suite of kind of basic applications, which so we still got 20 or so applications that it looks like the majority of folks that have filled out the poll that are on the call today. And this is kind of consistent with what we see across our client base on a regular basis, that there's the 32 applications that are on the screen here. There's generally 20 plus that people aren't using. So I think that gives a good opportunity to start looking at what are some of the other applications that you could be using. And we're not going to go through all of them. Some of them we've already mentioned. You talked about Planner.
Yeah.
Another good example is Forms. This is an easy one to deploy, but it can have big impact. So we see folks will be using like SurveyMonkey, email out a question and have 32 people respond to it. That kind of stuff. This is an easy one. Forms is built into 365. You can spin up a form on the web and on the web-based form and send out a link to it. You can do it right within Outlook. So you can just ask a question in Outlook and ask people to say yes, no, or pick one of the options. And it's a really good way to essentially to automate data collection, right? And that's sort of the 101. The 201 to this is once you get the data being collected within 365 and 365 environment, you could start to look at plugging in more complicated workflows. So when this happens, then this should happen. You start to look at collecting data in a different way. You start to look at a data repository, and you can pull out Power BI reporting and dashboarding and metrics and stuff like that from it. And then you really advance this sort of adoption and utilization of the 365 platform, because then you're like, oh, hey, let's dive into the Power Platform, because we want to create a widget form, start with forms, and then move into the Power Platform.
That's great. Not a really good one. I think when we talk a lot about that, managing the email overload, everybody's sending everything via email. A couple of key tips and tricks that I like to use personally is using flags and automations set up within your Microsoft Outlook that can actually tag specific people's emails coming from a specific vendor, specific client. It can bold, color code it, and add a flag to it, so it gives you an action item to follow up on, thereby managing the highest priority items within your inbox. The second one that I like to use is pins. If you've got something that, say you just booked your flight for your training seminar you're going to go to in 3 weeks, and you don't want to be searching in your email later on for the code in the ticket so you could go sign up or register, check in, any of that. You just pin it in your Outlook, and it'll stay there as a pinned item within your Outlook list until you're ready to unpin it and leave it in the general mail flow, which is really good for you to find and keep track of things that you want to use on a recurring basis as well. And then number 3 for me, 3 and 4 actually, is at mentions. At mentions is really important. Most people generally will format their inbox by read or unread, or by recent date. One of the fun ways to do it for yourself, if you're looking for things that people have asked you to follow up on, or something that mentions you as a key contributor, you just go to the filter button and go at the at mentions, because anything that says at Brendan or at Jermaine will show up in my list of at mentions, and it will be only the emails where someone has directed that information or request to me. So if the email says, hey, Jermaine, then all of a sudden it's being directed at me. It'll throw that up into the at mentions. And the second portion of that is longer the days. You can have a scheduler. You can use the scheduling format. Me, I like people that have flexibility to book time in with me. So I've got a link from my bookings app, which is on the app of 32, one of the 32 apps that most people aren't using today, or the 20 apps. And you just click a book a time with me, and it gives you a 15-minute slot, 30-minute slot, or a 45-minute slot. And you can pick whichever one you want. It'll show you the available times, and we can go ahead and have a meeting. And there's none of this, let's go back and forth 18 times to see who's got the right time in their calendar. So really powerful to use those kind of 4 tricks within your email. Makes you way more productive and helps you to deliver on time for the things that you're looking to prioritize.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. So you start to think about this adoption challenge, and if we start to take, so we talked a little bit about forms, we talked about Planner. Now we're talking about taking bookings and integrating with our email, so that we don't have like a Calendly or something that we're paying for on a monthly basis that's separate. It's all part of the stuff that we're using. And it's built into that 365 suite. And the more and more we get people using these different things, the more they understand how the integration works, how the suite works, and the higher our adoption rates are. All right, we got one more example. All right, this is one of my favorite ones. Big Chat Enterprise. So here's where we get into the world of AI, right? So Microsoft in Windows 11 is now rolling out Copilot within Windows 11. For if you don't have Windows 11, you can still, and you've got a Microsoft 365 premium license, which business premium license, which most people do these days, or a good chunk of folks do. You've got Bing Chat Enterprise already included in there, and we can start really improving how we work, right? You want an assistant to help you do research. You want an assistant to help you find something. You want to try and find a file. You want to try and make a change. I was doing something. Oh, I know what it was. I was helping my dad. I had a little screen share with my dad, and I was trying to kind of teach him a little bit more about being a bit more self-sufficient on a computer. So I told him in Bing Chat, he wanted to import his bookmarks from Google Chrome into the Edge browser. I said, well, just type into Bing Chat, I'd like to import my my bookmarks from a different browser. And it didn't just give him an answer for how to do that. It opened up the screen in Edge where he just needed to click the link that said import bookmarks. So there's there's a different way of computing that we're moving to now. So this is not, hey, we're gonna search, get a bunch of instructions. This is actually going to tell us how to do stuff, right? And so the generative AI, this large language model, this chat capability, is giving us the ability to really support ourselves in our work, right? You want to know how to do something in Word. You want to know how to do something in Excel. You want to find some images. You want to find documents. You want to really give a big boost to your productivity. It's right there. That chat's right there. We're trying to get everybody using this a little. And the other thing is, we talked about this in previous webinars, but top right corner, if you see Bing Chat Enterprise, it says protected. In previous webinars, we've been diving into this in a little bit more detail. If you use Bing Chat Enterprise or Microsoft Copilot, however it's branded, it's in a secure environment. So it's behind a firewall. So unlike ChatGPT, whatever you're putting into that chatbot, it's not being scraped. It's not being learned from. It's not taken to potentially going out into the public domain. So a really important piece. All right, so we got a couple more minutes. So we wanted to do 2 other quick things. One is just talk about adoption needs. So if you want to better adopt 365, here's our viewpoint. There's 3 things that you need from your IT. 1, strong systems admin. Stuff's got to work properly. It's got to be set up properly. It's got to be maintained proactively. Otherwise, people are just going to get frustrated because the stuff's not working. The advice piece is critical. So many businesses don't get advice on a regular basis for how to better adopt 365, how to better use cloud software. And then the third bit service desk. If somebody's having trouble, they can't get something working, you got to be able to call, right? You got to be able to have somebody that you can call, and technical support folks. So from a Techify perspective, here's how we do this. We have a process that we call techification that leads to monthly proactive techification visits where we audit, review, and align to best practices. That's a core part of our systems admin process. Obviously, ongoing cybersecurity network monitoring is important, implementing projects, weekly maintenance, all that kind of fun stuff. On the advice side of things, we meet with our clients quarterly and develop roadmaps. 12-month roadmaps. Here's what we would suggest. We look at their adoption details in 365, and there's a boatload of information that we take and we present to them to help guide them through those adoption stages. It includes, in some cases, data and AI consulting. And then, of course, on an ongoing basis, we provide proper procurement so that, people aren't using Windows XP, they're using Windows 11, Windows 10, or they know the migration path from 10 to 11. And then from a service desk perspective, those ongoing support requests, making sure computers are set up properly, users are set up properly, all that sort of stuff. So that's the quick rundown about us. We like to spend most of our webinars helping and then just give a little bit of information about us. If you are interested in more on this subject, we didn't want to just throw a bunch of information at you and then walk away and say, happy holidays, happy new year, peace out. We are offering anybody that's interested a free productivity and AI assessment. So we have a process that we can go through that will get a strong understanding of your environment, your goals, what you're trying to achieve, assess the technology that you have in place from an infrastructure, from a process standpoint, and give you a roadmap for how you can better utilize and adopt 365, the different applications you can use. And Jermaine, we had a great meeting on Monday along these lines. Some companies are getting to the point of, okay, we've adopted 365 now, take us on the AI road. What can we do from here?
Yeah, and there's a lot of that out there. I think stage one with everything, as you learn, you change your baseline. And I think a lot of even our clients, they've gotten to the point where they've utilized and they've adopted the Microsoft 365. Now we're ready for the Windows 11, Windows Copilot. We're ready for Copilot for productivity items through Microsoft 365. What do we do next? And how do we adopt and train to that? So there's always something new. And I think to see and reap the benefits of that and to stay ahead of the curve, especially in your market space, it's important to understand where you're at and then see what you need to do to get to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody that so you can sign up with the QR code, feel free to send us a note. And since this is the last webinar of the year, we wanted to just wish everybody a very happy holidays. Thank you for those that have been on our webinars multiple times over the course of this year. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate all the feedback and the support. And thanks for joining today. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A panel. What I'm going to do is just put one more poll up here, just to get feedback from folks. If you do pop off before you do pop off the webinar, please fill out the poll and give us some feedback on this webinar or the information that we presented today. So that poll should be popping up on your screen now. And I think we might be done, Jermaine. I'm not seeing any questions here. I think we have it's holiday time. People are in a holiday rush. I think they're grabbing their information and they're taking off. So I think with that, thank you everybody for joining us today. Jermaine, thank you for joining me as always.
Yeah, it's great, and happy holidays to everyone.
Happy holidays. Have a safe and happy holiday.